Hello! In 2016, we conducted a test of the Oleic soybean oil in one of the residence halls here at Purdue University, and we currently use the Oleic soybean oil in one of our restaurants. I'm glad today to have joining me today Greg Minner, the director of Purdue Catering and Dining, and executive chef Bruce Haumesser, who is the chef at the restaurant where we're currently using the Oleic soybean oil. So Greg, can you tell us how you used the oil in your kitchen?
Yes, we actually used it in Hillenbrand Dining Court in spring of 2016. We introduced it to the students of Purdue Dining and Catering, and with that we used it in mostly the deep fryers, and was using a lot of the things that we would normally deep fry for students, and that was most of the time during the meals. And so we used that to actually test to see what the difference was between the canola oil that we used and the Oleic soybean oil. So we introduced it to the students of being Indiana grown. So we really wanted to emphasize that with them, and so the reception from the students was really good.
Great, great. So Bruce, you want to share a little bit about how you have or are currently using the oil?
We're using it in our Sagamore restaurant. We're also using it in the deep fryer as they did in Hillenbrand to fry all of our menu items, from our breakfast potatoes to our fried pickles at lunch, fried shrimp at lunch, fried sweet potatoes, and we also have a fried banana for dessert, which is very popular. So we use it quite often every day.
Great, great. So, Greg, I'm interested to hear a little bit from you. Since this product is a transgenic or a GMO product, what's the perception that you get from people because this product is a GMO?
Well, I think throughout the course of the system of looking at dining and catering and the restaurant business and everything, I think there's a perception out there sometimes that GMO, being genetically modified and the growing of it, sometimes people don't look at that as being the best for them, and I think that perception a lot of times keeps people from trying it, actually. And so I think that was one of the things that we wanted the students to understand when we went into this, that hey, this is an Indiana grown product, not emphasizing so much that it's GMO, but that it's an opportunity for them to eat sustainability wise and those types of things. So we kind of introduced it to them, being the fact that it's Indiana grown, it's sustainable, and trying to encourage them to understand that there's a lot of great properties in it already that they can understand. So we showed them some of that difference between the canola oil and then also regular soybean oil and then the Oleic soybean oil.
Great. So is health benefits something that you consider when you're making these types of choices between the oils?
Oh, of course. We have students that are looking at that many times. We have an app that students actually use that they can see, the nutritional analysis of the product that they're eating. And so with that, they have the ability to see, what we're using in the products. And so the oil is there in that so that they know that that's actually something that they have that information that they want to be able to see. So.
Great, great. So Bruce, give us a little bit of perspective in terms of what it was like to use the product. How does it compare with canola oil, if that's the oil that you typically would use if you weren't using this oil?
Sure, we were using the canola oil. I believe the biggest takeaway that we are finding in the restaurant right now is there's no transfer of flavors when you're frying from one item to another. So historically, if you go into a restaurant, many times you'd eat French fries and they would taste like chicken or fish or something, depending on how they took care of the oil. We don't find that transfer of flavor at all with this oil, which I think is really unique. I've used it for some emulsifications to make some salad dressing, some vinaigrettes, and it worked just as the canola oil did, which was very nice. The one thing I did take away from this particular oil is that it's very clear. So when you're making your vinaigrette, even though you add the acidity and the vinegars, they tend to get a little cloudy. This is a little less cloudy. So if you're using fresh herbs and things like that, they tend to shine through a little bit more. Also with your corn oils and things like that, they tend to have a little corn flavor. The canola was relatively neutral, but olive oil and peanut oil, they all have their own dominant flavor. But this was very neutral, and it really didn't add any flavors that you really didn't want to it. Also, I've done some sautéing with it, and it's very similar to the canola oils that we used previous to that, or even the clarified butter. So, for oil to oil, it worked pretty much the same with the difference. The transfer of the flavor wasn't there. Plus, from a responsibility standpoint, it's nice to be able to use one oil in your deep fryer, and the same oil for your emulsifications, and the same oil for your sautéing, as opposed to having all these different oils around, which many places generally have.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure. So he talked a little bit about his perspective from a chef. What did the students have to say in terms of the differences?
Well, I think what was really great is we did do sensory testing with them. We actually had lab students come in and do the sensory testing and find out really, what is the difference that they see between the French fries, one in canola oil, one in the high oleic soybean oil. And actually the students told us, we really think the taste is better in the high oleic soybean oil. So I think that was one of the indications that we thought, well, this is good, because you're always trying to make sure your customer has the best taste that they can get from that. And I think I would say from a chef perspective on it, that he mentions that you couldn't tell that difference in it, or when you're deep frying different things, and we deep fry a lot of different things in the dining courts, when you're doing that, you don't have that transfer of taste. The students really did not notice that. And they commented on that they knew that there wasn't something else being fried in it, or when you mix things like that in products, sometimes you have different French fries that taste different in that, depending on the mix or whatever's going on in the deep fryer at the time. So that was one of the things that was really conclusive to us, to know that they're getting a pure taste for the product that we're making. So
great. What about texture? Did they notice any difference in the texture?
No, they didn't really talk about much about texture.
Okay.
I think it was more, with the students, French fries are everything.
Sure.
And so they really make sure that, if it's a good French fry, they're going to eat it. And we really try to make sure that we deep fry them and keep them on spot for them, so that when they're in line, they're coming into the dining court, so they're getting a fresh fry anyway. And so I think that's one of the things that, it's probably more about the taste at that particular time. So.
Sure. So Bruce, what's your perspective from the restaurant side of things in terms of taste and texture?
Right. So unlike the side-by-side comparison that Greg was just speaking to, I'm not really going to get a student or a guest come up to me and say, wow, the oil that you fried my French fry in was really, really good. I think it's ironic that we have so many students in this environment. They're looking for healthier options, and they're pretty vocal about that. I don't know what that healthier option means to them individually, but you see the lines at the healthier options area. They're just as long at the burger and French fry place. So we have a responsibility to these students to feed them or give them a product that is healthier, even though they're in that burger fry line. So we look for a healthier bun. We use produce from the student farm, which is grown local and very, very fresh. And we make sure that we use oil that is healthier for them. So when they do have their fries, at least we're contributing to somewhat of that healthier perception that they may not think they're getting, but we're giving them because we're responsible for providing that for them.
Great, great. So Greg, when you think about this oil, are you currently using it in the dining halls? Why or why not? And if not, would you consider switching?
Well, we currently don't use it in the dining courts. One of the things that we first started out was the fact that it was soybean oil. And that perception of soybean oil when it comes to people who are concerned about allergens is something that is really, there's a lot of vocal people out there about it. Even our registered dietitians, sometimes they refer to if the fact that you're saying it's high oleic is great, but when you add the soybean on that part, it becomes now an issue. And especially when it comes to parents that are really out there. We have a lot of parents that are really concerned about their children's nutrition and what happens in that. And so we have parents that are saying, they're talking to us and saying, hey, my son has a soybean allergy, or my son or my daughter has an allergy for nuts or milk or something like that. And so we're meeting with them and talking with them. And so when we introduced it to Hillenbrand for that spring semester, one of the things that we wanted to make sure that students knew was that we were having it there, because we had not before. It was always canola oil. And so when we introduced that, letting them know right up front that we have it here, but also if they needed to talk to someone about that, because I think the perception there a lot of times is reality in folks' eyes, even though we know from the research and everything on it that it doesn't have those same properties as the high oleic soybean oil. It doesn't have that soybean property in it that would cause an allergic reaction. So I think that was one of the things that we had to make sure that we got out there, that people understood that. And I think having it in the dining courts today, probably more so the reason of the cost to that. And we haven't talked much about the cost, but associated with the soybean, the high oleic soybean oil, is the cost associated with it to bring it into the dining court. So that was the other factor that we took into consideration when we were looking at it.
Right. So is cost, how does that play into as you think about the restaurant setting?
Well, it's the same. I mean, with the
Sure.
responsibility, I mean, it does come with a cost, but sometimes the significant cost does outweigh it. And I know from the deep frying perspective, the shelf life was a little bit less than what we are accustomed to as well.
So from your experience, is this the type of oil that you would recommend that other chefs use, or that even a consumer might think about using in their own kitchen?
Well, so again, with the big non-transfer of food flavors, so when you're cooking something in the deep fryer, you don't want my dessert banana to taste like shrimp or a pickle. But that means that you're getting the actual true flavor at its highest profile, which should be appealing to a restaurant, especially one who wants to serve a quality product, at its peakest flavor point. And coupled on with the fact that it's so multi-useful in all of your applications, I would recommend it for a restaurant that would consider a high-end quality product like that. One day the cost will come down because the production will be better. But if you're on the front end of that, you're already the better for it.
Yeah, great. What's your perspective?
Well, I've used it a couple times, and I've really enjoyed using it. And I think one of the biggest things with me is understanding and knowing that those properties of using it for different things when you're cooking are not transferred over. Like if you're doing a stir fry or something, you're not getting that same taste of something else that you might have made with it, or bringing it into that. And it brings out the true value, I think, of the vegetables in it, that you're doing it in that time. Like I think he had alluded to is the taste of it, and when you're trying that and that you're getting the full flavor of whatever you're cooking in it, I think that's one of the biggest things that we've enjoyed with it.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for sharing how you've used the high oleic soybean oil here at Purdue, and we appreciate you sharing our time and expertise with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.